y'all, Gramma Rose here. I'm putting up corn today. Now I did 8 pints last night and I still have several more to do today. So while I am doing this, let me show you how I can corn. Not hard. It's just a matter of cutting the corn off the cob, putting it in the jar, and processing it in not a hot water bath, but in a pressure canner. This is one of those things that you cannot do in a hot water bath. And even in a pressure canner, it takes a long time, mainly because the corn packs down in the jar so tightly that it takes longer for the heat to reach the center of it. So you have to process corn for a good bit longer than you do other vegetables, but it's worth it. And I should have at least a dozen jars of corn on my cabinet. On my cabinet? No, hopefully not. But in my pantry, I'll have at least a dozen jars of corn when I'm finished. That's a good deal. Well, let me tell you what happened. Saturday, I was on a mission to find a U-pick farm close to me. Now, I knew there were two relatively close, at least within an hour's drive. So, my friend Lou, you may know her as Lou Just Lou on YouTube, told me about a U-pick farm in a town that was, 20 miles or so from me, which was not bad at all. So I drove all the way out in the country, way out in the country, from the paved roads to a narrower, less well-paved road to a gravel road. Turned off it, following Google Maps, got there. There were no signs anywhere. Now that could have been Google Maps' problem. But then I decided to do what I should have done to very begin with, and I called the telephone number. The phone had been discontinued. So, got back in the car, wound down the road, back to home. This time, I looked on the computer and I searched for U-pick farms in Mississippi. So I figured if the farm was registered with U-pick Farms, I don't know if that's what it's called, but with the U-pick farm, that it would be safe to go. So this time I called first. Well, the phone didn't ring, but at least the answering machine picked up, and I figured, well, somebody was there. So I went ahead and I drove. This time it was farther. It was about an hour drive. Got there. Again, it wasn't there. Whether they had taken down the signs because it was late in the season and they didn't they didn't have anymore, but they weren't there. So I turned back around and I was going to go to my grocery. I didn't want to go to my grocery. So on the way to the grocery, I saw this truck, and it's at a spot where people set up for flea market kind of, garage sale kind of things, except they bring the things to this spot and set up because it's at an intersection of two highways. So this truck was there and it was loaded up with green bags of something. So I went on to the grocery and with the intention of stopping back there on the way home. So I did. And it turned out they had field corn for 50 ears of corn for $11. I figured that's a pretty good deal. Took it home, and this was Saturday. So this is Monday, and it sat for a day, and I started last night, and now I'm finishing this morning. Now what I found last night some of this corn is not extremely fresh. It's already starting to, what do you call it, dimple? Where the kernels are not plump, they're starting to get an indentation in them. Some of them look like they were nice and plump kernels on the cob. Those were good. I set those aside, put them in the refrigerator, and I can boil those. The rest of them, I decided I'm going to go ahead and cut them off the cob because I won't be able to eat those fresh. They won't be any good fresh. So cutting them off the cob, and then I'm canning them. So let me turn the camera around and get set up and show you how I am getting this corn ready to can. So after I get the corn packed in the jars, then I will can it, and I'll take you along with me on that too. So let's get started, and let's get some corn processed. Here we go, y'all. Okay. Now, this is the silk end. Let's see here. And this is the end that was attached to the stalk. And I'm not going to cut it all the way up here like you would with if you're eating it off the cob. But I don't need all of this on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this knife right here. So I'm feeling with my fingers. Right here, there's a, you can feel where it goes in, indentation here. So I'm coming right up to here and just cutting. My fingers out of the way. And look at, watch this. That's really all I need to do. And then I'm just popping that off. With that cut off, I'm just going to peel off all of the shucks. You see, it didn't get all the way in there. And we might find worms, because I found worms in the other ones. Let me show you what I was talking about. Look at all the silks. And you can see there's worm damage in it. So I bought this brush as a fingernail brush, but it works great for getting the silks off the corn. But I mean, if it's gentle enough to use on your hands, it's not damaging these ears at all. So there we go. I left a few. There's a little worm. Where is it? There's a little worm. I'm saving these for my chickens. Got a jar lid here. Just put it in the jar lid. I'm cutting this end off, which is a lot easier. And I'm actually saving these for the chickens. I didn't wash this pan yesterday. I wiped out the pan last night. Now this is the easiest part. Before I do it, let me show you what I was talking about. Do you see how not quite so fresh this corn is? I mean, some of it's fine, but you can see that it's past its prime, very definitely. Yeah. I do not have a lot of Pampered Chef items, but this is one that I have. The ones that I have, I love. I don't have a lot of Pampered Chef items because my kitchen was already really well stocked before I even heard of Pampered Chef. But I would go get an invitation to a party and buy maybe one thing just to be polite. You know how you do with some of these things. You like a lot of stuff, but you can't afford a lot of stuff. So you get one. And this is one that I got. And this is a mandolin, but it only has one blade. It has one fixed blade. However, I have this gadget here, and at this point, the blade is completely covered by this plastic, so you can't cut yourself when you're washing it. And then we have one notch, and it slices very thin slices. Two notches, and it's a little bit thicker, and three notches, it's about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm using this third notch. I'm using the mandolin to cut the corn off the cob. It's working perfectly. Let me show you. So in here, I'm just, look at that. And continue to do that all the way around. Careful to keep my fingers out of the way. I don't want to cut the tips off my fingers. I actually did that once. Learned my lesson on it. One more. And I can go back and get the ridges. Just lift it up and There, look. So there's the kernels from one ear of corn. And he did a pretty good job. Now the next thing I'm doing, just taking the cob again, and I'm taking a knife, just a butter knife, and I'm just scraping down. I'm holding it up a little bit more than I generally am because this flies everywhere. There. And then turn it back around and get the other end. And we're done. Now, whoops! Now, I've got lots more to do. About a dozen more to go. And I'll be back with you and we'll can it. Here's what I have left. There's the ears of corn and all the shucks and the silks. There's the corn that was on the ears. So I'm getting ready to pack this in jars. So let me zoom back out on this a little bit. There we go. I'm just going to mix this up. I'm using my scraper. Do you have one of these? You can use it to cut soap, or you can use it just to scrape your countertop, or to pick up vegetables. So it just scrapes across, and you can scoop it up. So it's a scoop also, and that's how I'm going to be using it, as a scoop. What I'm going to do, make some room in here, so I won't be making a mess. I'm going to put my jar with my funnel inside this pan. So there's the jar. I'm getting a, well, move the jar out of the way a little bit. Getting a scoop of, scoop of corn. Dumping the corn in the jar. And continue to do that until there's about an inch of headspace at the top. Funnel might work, but this works just fine since this pan has a flat bottom. And see, that's too much. See there? That is way too much corn. So let me take this, put this on this other jar over here. Get ready for that one. And just dump this out. See, it just pours out until I've left a little bit more. Let me show you why I'm leaving more. This jar right here is the one that I canned last night. And I left about an inch of headspace. And look at this. The corn took up all of the water and it swelled. And it's all the way up to the rim of the jar in the processing. So I'm putting less corn in it this time. And hopefully I'll be able to manage that, that expansion, I guess, of the corn. Because this is really too tight. There's not any liquid in it. You can look at this. Do you see there's not any liquid in it? Actually, there probably is. But it's really packed in here. It's sealed. There's not a problem there. But I'm doing this one just a little bit different. And hopefully I'll be able to manage this a little bit better than I did the last time. So this is about what I want. Let me put a little bit more in here. Okay, this line here, this big line right there, is the inch line. So I've got it about a ½ inch below that line. And we will see after it's finished processing if that worked, if it worked better. So let me finish filling these jars and we'll see how many more jars I have to process. I'll be back. I filled 4 jars. There we go. So there's my 4 jars. And I need to prep these. I need to clean them up a little bit and then put some water in them and get ready to process them. So let me show you what I'm going to do. But first of all, so last night I had just about that much corn left over too. And I put it in a plastic bag, a freezer bag, and it's in my freezer. So I will add this to it, and then at some point I will be able to put that in a stew or a soup or something. Between what I had last night and this, I might have been able to fill another jar. So I just have a rag. I'm wetting it with some water at the sink. A lot of people use vinegar for this. Nothing oily whatsoever on this. So I don't really need the oil to cut the oil on the rim of the jar. All I need is just a damp cloth. And this is what I'm going to do. I probably should wait until after I put water in it. which I think is what I will do. So I am going to take the jar. So here we are. So there's my jar. I have a quart of water. I'm not going to need a quart of water, but I won't have to refill this either. I'm going to fill this up to the 1-inch line with water. And it'll take a little bit because all the crevices in between the corn, the water's going to settle in there. And I can use the same knife that I used at this point right over the surface of it. And the same knife that I used to scrape it, I'm just going to put this, whoops, there's a silk on there. I don't want the silk. Just going to put this down in here and kind of stir it around a little bit to release any air bubbles. That's how loud my roosters are. I am inside the house. There we go. So we've got bubbles now. It came to the surface. Now again, let me add. See, now the water's a little cloudy because that's from the corn. Raise that up right to that inch line. And inside it looks just a tad more. And that's it. Now I've got this damp cloth. Now I didn't mention, the jars are clean. Wash soap and water. They're clean. The lids are clean. But they're not sterile. There's not a problem with sterilization when you're using not a hot water bath. When you're using a pressure canner, the pressure canner at 10 pounds of pressure is going to get up to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which is plenty hot to totally sterilize these jars and the contents in them. Damp cloth again. I'm going to wipe the lid down. And again, I've washed these lids. Now, put the top on it, finger tight, and I've got 2 more to do. Another thing I do, I hold my finger down and then I turn the jar. Okay, as long as you stop and start at the same spot, you're fine. Now these jars aren't hot, so I'm just going to put them in here with my fingers. I will have to use tongs when I get them back out again though. Now, like I said, this is corn. It's going to take a long time to process. Put this top on here. Line up the marks on it. There's a mark on the lid and a mark on the handle, and then just turn that around and it's sealed. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And as soon as steam starts coming out of this vent in a steady stream, it'll take a little while, then I will turn the timer on and time this for 10 minutes. At that point, I'm going to put this, I don't know what you call that. I don't know what you call that piece. It rocks, it jiggles. The jiggler? Maybe let's call it a jiggler. We're going to put the jiggler on top of this. I'll put it there right now to show you. Put that on there, and what we'll do is the pressure has been released through the steam, then that will keep the pressure in. It'll hold it down and keep the pressure inside this device. And at that point, there's a button back there that's going to pop up. And when it's a valve, and when that valve pops up, then it's sealed. Sometimes it takes a little bit of help. It'll jiggle a little bit and want to pop up and it doesn't, and I'll just use a knife or something, the tip of a knife, and once I kind of run the knife around the outside of it, it'll pop right up, and that's not a problem at all. So I'm seeing steam starting to come out, but it's not in a long steady stream. Now I have this set for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes we're going to set it again. These are pint jars of corn. I'm going to process these for 55 minutes. Quart jars process for 85 minutes. But the pint jars don't take as long to process. But still, 55 minutes is a long time for processing a vegetable in a pint jar. But as I said, the reason is because the corn is little. It's packed in here. And it takes that extra time to heat all the way to the center because of the way the corn is packed in it. All right, the timer's going off. Stop that. And I'm going to put jiggler on here. And like I said, this thing is not popping up like it's supposed to. I'm just going to use this little spatula and just, there it did. There was water, there was steam or condensation around it, and it was just kind of stuck. It's maybe just a suction. I don't know, but that happens every now and then. It's not a big deal. If it wasn't ready to pop up, it wouldn't have. Now, what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to set the timer for 55 minutes, but it's not going to start it yet. I'm going to set the timer for 55 minutes, but I'm not going to start it yet. Now, what I'm waiting for at this point, looking at the gauge is going to go up to 10 pounds. And when that happens, or actually right before that happens, this is going to start jiggling. It's going to start rocking back and forth, and you'll hear it. Oh, you can hear the jiggling. You hear it? That's what I'm talking about. And now it's rocking. Look at that. And you see it. You see it rocking back and forth. So it's time to start the timer. And if you notice also, right now, whoops, ouch, I touched the top and that was hot. Okay, if you notice the gauge is right at 10 pounds. If I don't turn the heat down just a little bit, it's going to get too high. So I'm just going to barely turn the heat down just a little. Now this is the gas stove, and it's old enough that it's worn off the knob. Oh, it's worn off the dots. Tell me what the temperature is. So I'm just going to turn it down until I see the flame just start to reduce a little. There we go. Now that should hold it at 10 pounds. If it goes below 10 pounds, you've got to start the timing all over again. So I don't want that to happen. 10, 11 pounds is fine, but I don't want to go any higher than that. And I shouldn't. Now I'm going to start the timer. And that's really all there is to it. Now we're back to the corn. You might think that this might be a good time. You've got almost an hour. Might be a really good time to take this out to the compost. I'm going to have to cut these cobs apart in smaller pieces, otherwise it'll take them a really, really long time to decompose. So I'm going to get out my loppers and cut them down into about inch and a half, 2 inch size pieces. And all of the shucks, salt, everything can go into the compost, except those do need to be cut down. You might think this is a good time to do it. And I'm tempted, because I've never had a problem with my canner. But you know, as soon as I leave the house, go outside, this would be the time that something would happen that I need to take care of. So you don't leave the house, you stay close by. If not in the kitchen, or right where your canner is processing. Maybe not right next to it, standing and watching it, but close by where you can hear anything that sounds different. You hear this sound. If that sound changes, then I need to come in and check on it and see what's going on and why the sound changes. Because this is normal. Something else would be abnormal. So no, as tempting as it is to go take this out to the compost, I'm going to stay in here and clean up my kitchen. And the timer's going off. Let me turn it off. And we'll turn off the heat underneath the canner. And as soon as the heat goes off, listen to it. You hear how the sound, see how the sound changed almost immediately. So it's dropped down from about 10.5 to 11 pounds back down to 10, and there's a dramatic difference in the sound of it. So that's why I said you need to stay close so you can hear it. Because if something like that happened, you would know it immediately. So we're going to wait for the pressure to drop all the way back down to 0. And when that happens, let me show you back here. Now I've shown you this before. I don't know if you've watched any of my videos. If you might be new to my channel. But back here is that pressure valve. Right here in the middle of the screen. So there's a pressure valve. That's going to drop all the way back down too. Now this right here, this is on mine. I don't know if you have that on yours or not. This is an emergency pressure valve. In case of an emergency, if the pressure gets too high, this valve will blow out. It's just a rubber gasket, a rubber valve. It'll blow out and release the pressure. That way the pressure cooker is not going to explode. So this is a built-in safety feature on mine. I don't know if you have it on yours or not, but it's a good one, and this is why I like my Presto. Of course I would rather have an All-American canner. Anybody who's a canner would prefer to have an All-American canner because they're the top of the line. That's what everyone would love to have. Yes, I want to have one. No, I cannot afford to have one. So I have this Presto, and mine has both the jiggler, the rocker gauge, and the pressure dial. So I can both hear it rocking and I can see actually on the pressure dial what the pressure is. So I like this. It doesn't hold as much as the All-American, but it's a good canner, and it was less than $100. So now we're just waiting for that to go down. This rocker has already stopped rocking, but you don't take it off yet. Never remove that until the pressure is to 0 and that valve in the back is down. You don't want to remove that rocker too early. It would be dangerous. So it's another sit and wait. And if you notice over here, my dishes are washed. Plastic bags are drying. That's going to be a quick tip one of these days. Although I shouldn't even have to show you how to do it. There you go. We'll be back. This is what I'm talking about, y'all. Do you see this? This dial is on 0. 0 pounds of pressure. Be tempted to take that rocker off, right? But look back there. That button is still up. I'm not taking that off until that's down. Okay. See what happens. I'm not going to take this off. Hear that? There's still steam in there. So it's all the way on 0. Actually, it's below 0. But that button in the back has not gone down yet. And that rooster says, you are right. Okay, that button is down. All the way down. Now I can remove this. I'm going to take it off. It makes no sound. Hear it? No, except for metal on metal. It's not making any kind of sound like there's any kind of pressure inside it. And now it's safe to take off the lid. Now I'm doing this every time I do a video pressure canning. I always go over these basics because I never know, there may be someone who is new to pressure canning and needs to know this. So it's not going to hurt y'all who are familiar with this, but it will help someone who doesn't know. So now I'm just going to, my arm's in the way, I'm sure, probably. It takes me 2 hands to do this. Now, turn it around. Now, always, always, always open it with the edge of the lid away from your face, because there's still going to be steam inside it. And if you open it towards your face, you're going to get a facial like you would not like. okay? We do not want hot steam in our faces. We're going to turn it away from us and let that steam go. There we go. Like that. Ooh, see that? Can you see the steam? I don't know if you can or not. There you go. I moved it out of the way. It smells like corn. I'm going to reach over here and you can see this. I don't know. Let me move back up here so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to lift up and over and back onto those mats that I put down there. You want to be sure you raise it high enough that you don't knock the bottom of the jar on the edge of your canner. So up and over. And up and over. Oops. That was just my vent. Up and over. Up and over. So there's my 4 jars. And I'm going to wait until they cool off. You really need to wait 12 hours before you move them. But since this is on my stovetop, I'll wait until late this afternoon. It's about 1:45, so I'll wait until 7 or so. And then by that time I will have moved these other ones that are over here. Those. I will have moved those. And all I'll be doing is lifting this up and over to the other side. And that's all there is to it. In just a few minutes we should hear pinging on the lids where they're starting to seal. If you've never heard that before, that's the sound that a canner loves. And just you hear it pop, but they're not ready yet. Now this is something I wanted to show you. Let me zoom in on these. This is what I wanted to see. Do you see how this corn has expanded in these jars? Remember, it was all the way down to here. Remember, right at here. I left it at this point right here, right where this lip, where the curve of the jar comes up and is straight. That's as far as I packed this. I didn't pack the corn at all. You saw me put the corn in here. I didn't pack it. I didn't tap it. I didn't do anything to it. After I put the corn in the jar, the only thing that I did to it after I added the water was I ran a knife down in it to get rid of the bubbles. But I did not add any extra corn to it. And now look at the level of the corn in those jars. So this is something you need to be careful of and be aware of. Okay? So, bye y'all. See you next time.